Oi, 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 YouTube. I hope you guys are having a great day. Welcome back to another video. Unclench that jaw. Get some water. Today, we're going to be exploring the Raccoon City Police Department. The new map coming via the Resident Evil chapter to Dead by Daylight. And I'm very excited to talk about this and show this map off to you guys and show you where all the vaults, all the pallets, all the gens can be, and to help you guys understand it better. The first thing to note is that in the main room of Raccoon City Police Department, this exit gate will always be here. So before we dive too far in, that's important to know that exit gate is always there. So let's dive in. Of course, we have the main room, and you guys will know this if you've seen really any Resident Evil 2 footage, Resident Evil 2 remake footage. You guys probably know this room pretty dang well. The reception desk, the police desk here, it's really important to note that this police desk will always have a pallet. If the pallet's not here, then it'll be on this opposite side here. But there's always at least one pallet, and this is not the worst loop in the world. You can make this work. It's actually kind of safe. As long as you don't panic and get mind gamed, right? It's not too bad. Against M1 killers, at least. A generator can spawn right here, and a totem can actually spawn right here in front of the shelf too, so keep your eyes peeled. But if we're looking into this main room, there's a lot to kind of notice. So there's one entrance right there. There's one entrance right over here, directly in front of me. There's one entrance here, and then there's one entrance right there. These are the four first floor entrances, and we're going to explore those here in just a second. We're going to start on the left-hand side here and explore this. This is the reception room, as you can kind of tell. Again, we see some of the blighted goo here. This pallet that you see will always be here. This pallet is always available here. It's not particularly safe, but it's consistent. So we get to kind of keep track of that. And we're going to go over to the side here and enter this hallway. And you guys may notice this hallway. This is one of the first hallways you really get to go into in Resident Evil 2 Remake, and it's a pretty creepy one. This pallet that you see here will almost always be here. If this pallet is not here, it'll be placed a little bit further down the hallway, but that is considered a god pallet because there's not really a good way around it. It's really, really safe, so keep that in mind. That is a very good pallet. And we see that hallway goes way further down, all the way down there. We're going to keep going straight for a little bit, though. We're going to keep going down to this corner here. This is the end of this hallway. And we see our hanging body. And that of course, is from Resident Evil 2 Remake as well. Good homage there. And here we have these confiscated items room. This is going to be the first room that we're actually going to go into in this hallway. And you can kind of see this again pulled pretty much directly out of Resident Evil 2, slightly reconfigured with a pallet. This pallet, again, is always here. This pallet will either be on the side where it is now, or it'll be right here in front of us here. But that pallet is always there. Fairly safe, as you can see through it. You can, tell if a killer's going to mind game you. So fairly safe to some degree. Don't burn this one too fast. It's a very, very good pallet. All right. Now, as we continue walking, if we walk through, we'll see that this connects back to the hallway we were just at earlier. So if we continue to go down this way, on our left we'll see the god pallet that we just went over, and we'll see the hallway there. So remember this room, the confiscated items room, always, always, always has a pallet, and can even have a gen. The gen can be in that corner there, and the pallet will be on the left-hand side. Of course, you can see the chest here as well. So really, really important to know this room here. We're going to keep going down. We hear the sounds of a angry Zambino here. A little homage again to Resident Evil. Somebody just pounding on the window. No, they cannot enter. So you are A-okay. We're going to enter this room here. I call this the cap room. The cap room, again, a little homage to Resident Evil 2 Remake because it has the locker room code that you'll use to actually unlock a locker to get some items. And this room does connect to the confiscated items room. So these are connected. Okay. And if you go back in here again, this connects back to the hallway, where if we keep going down, on the left, we'll see the god pallet, and we see the exit back there. So these rooms are all connected here. Alright. Now, if we keep going down, we hear the faint sounds of a hatch in this custom game. So that is important to know. But we're actually going to pop in here, and this is the ops room, or the operations room. Now, the operations room can have a generator right here. It will almost always have a pallet right here. So you guys will always have a fairly, I wouldn't say really a safe pallet per se, But since the killer can't walk around this, you could drop the pallet and the killer either has to break it or go all the way around and follow you here, which will again take you back to the cap room. So just to recap everything, right? If you're at this far hallway, you could run through the ops room, through the cap room, to the confiscated items room, and then get to God Pallet. So all of these rooms, just like the hallway there, are all linked together all the way down. So you're never trapped in any of those one rooms in particular, okay? So all of that is available to you. Now, you'll see here, we do have an exit that leads you kind of outside. This outdoor area connects all the way down here. We won't go quite down there yet, but we have another potential exit gate. This exit gate's not guaranteed, but it's here often. And you have another pallet here. I wouldn't necessarily call this safe. If you loop this outside edge, you can make a lot of time. But because you can't see the killer, moonwalks are hazardous here. If a killer mind games it pretty well, you could still take a hit. I wouldn't throw this immediately. I would attempt to save this as long as you can. I wouldn't necessarily... You could try to loop here as well, but it's not quite as wide, so it's a little bit easier for a killer to gain distance, okay? But this pallet is always here from everything I could tell, so keep that in mind. Now, if we keep moving forward here... All right, we're back here in this hallway. Like what we said, this is the ops room. Now on the left here, and you can always see the signs on the wall, this is the safety deposit room. You guys might remember this from Resident Evil 2 Remake, where you find the keys, you put them in, and you unlock the lockers to get things like ammo, pouches, etc. A totem can spawn here, but this room has no exit on this side. However, it will always have a pallet, and this pallet is, again, fairly strong. A killer really can't mind game you around this super well. The pallet will either be on this side, or it'll be on this side. But it's a guaranteed pallet. All right, so if you're near the exit or near the ops room, just know that the security deposit room is here. And again, if we go all the way down and to the left, you'll see the God pallet down there as well. Okay. Now, to keep moving forward, it's important to know where the stairs are. And it's important to know that you could just look at the signs on the walls at any given point in time, too. The exit is always going to point you to the outside area. The stairs, obviously, are going to point towards the stairs. So use this to keep yourself acclimated. Now, this is one of the last rooms we're going to talk about here on the first floor on the west side. And this is actually the west office. This is one of the first rooms that you'll kind of see as Leon, and some of the first puzzles you'll actually get through is the Welcome Leon room, where you have to get a code via the last names of the officers in the room. Of course, that has no relevance to this particular map, but you will see here, this pallet is incredibly safe, and this pallet is always here. All right, so this pallet's always here. It never goes away. You can count on this pallet existing for you. Oh. And you do have a window here. I would not say this window is particularly strong. In some cases, I imagine you could maybe run into this room, hit the window, then drop the pallet. I don't know that that benefits you a ton, but it's always there. All right. And to round this out, we'll go ahead and go here. And this is the very first reception room we ever entered, right? With the guaranteed pallet right here. So all of that loops back in on itself. We're back in the main hall for RPD. So if we go back in, and we go here, again, Leon's room. These are all connected. This is a vault right here. Anything with yellow tape is a vault. It's actually a pretty potent vault if you can get in here. If you look here, again, we're in the main room. So we talked about the first 4 entrances, 2 on that side, 2 on this side. This is one of the stronger entrances. You can run in and get that fast vault and keep moving. Maybe not even burn that pallet. Maybe go to the security deposit room, try to burn that pallet first. Of course, we have a friendly Wraith walking around too as well. Hi, Wraith. So, it's important to know, if you're in the RPD main room, alright, whether you're on that gen, maybe there's a gen down here you're on, right, and you see the statue, that's the main room, know that you have a pretty safe pallet here, a pretty safe vault here, but also know that, like I said, this room connects here to the reception room. So you could vault in here, you know, if you wanted to, come through the reception room and get to your God pallet if you absolutely need to. You could keep moving. It is worth noting, around this God pallet, there can be a generator right there in that corner. So keep that in mind as well. Now, if we move past the God pallet, past the west office, and we check the stairs, there are the stairs at the end of the hallway. This is actually one of my favorite areas because I remember this safe room so vividly in Resident Evil 2 Remake. If you hang a right here, typically there's no door here, but there is a save room. And when you enter the save room, the music on the map actually changes to be more melodious, to indicate that this was a save room, and you can see the typewriter here. Little homage to Resident Evil again. And this pallet is also always here. So this pallet never moves. It's not safe, but it can be annoying if you get this done. Now, if you remember the save room from Resident Evil 2 Remake, you remember the red room. This is where you would take some photos and hunt some treasure. Dip the photos, turn the room red with the light, and you would find some treasure. Typically, there's actually no door here, but there is in the Dead by Daylight map. So if you take a look here, you see the stairs sign. You can potentially, if someone's on your trail, hop into here and hit this pallet if you need to, or go the other way. It is important to know the basement can be right here. So if you remember the save room, if you remember the stairs, the basement can be here. Be very, very careful. This is one of 2 basement spawn locations. For now, it is blocked off. That'll work to our benefit. Now, if you keep going from here, you do get to go to a special area. You might recognize this from earlier, but we're back here. Raccoon City Police Department exit gate right there. All right, so the 2 ends of the hallways, they do connect. All right. So if you're really needing to maybe get to somebody who's in the basement, you can pop all the way out. And all the way back in. You can get your friend out of that basement hook. All right. Otherwise, to do so, to find that exit again, you'll have to go down and then look for the exit sign, and then boom. It's not too far, and it's not too bad. Just multiple areas to get to the same way. Okay, so we're going to go upstairs. We're going to hit the west 2nd floor. But first, before we do that, we're going to see that we're back in the Rpd Main Room. You may recognize that base area down there. If we go down the stairs, this is the west office where we welcome Leon. So there are 3 entrances on the left side. They all go west and are connected via these stairs. Okay? This God pallet up here will always be here. Okay, so count on this being a really safe spot for you. Don't burn this pallet too soon, because there are other pallets you can use, but this is a very strong one. It'll completely stop the killer. Now, if we go through here, this is the shower room, one of the jump scare moments from Resident Evil 2 Remake. Of course, this is set up to be nearly in the exact same spot it should be. The stairs are configured a little differently, but this nearly identically mimics Resident Evil 2 Remake. And of course, this is where you would shut off the steam valve. Now, this is interesting. There is a drop down here, similar to Midwich. Dead by Daylight has something about blowing out the bottoms of bathrooms. I think there's probably a joke in there somewhere. I'll let you guys find it. And this puts us right in the security deposit room, right in front of the exit. Okay? So if you have to drop down, you want to drop down here, use the security deposit room pallet. Or if you need to get back up, you just take the stairs back up. Just follow the stairs sign on the wall, and you'll make it just fine. And of course, you have the safe pallet here. Now, it's important to know, again, in the men's locker room, the shower room, there could be a generator. It's actually a nice little spot carved out right here for it. Keep that in mind. We do hear the hatch. And as of right now, in this version of the game, the hatch does spawn on the 2nd floor. I don't know how persistent that will be. So keep that in mind as we move through here. As of right now, we are back in this hallway. That's where God Pallet was. That's the locker room on the left. So we're going to keep moving here. We can go down this hallway. Some of you might recognize this. Now, here's something peculiar you might want to take a look at. See the light flickering there? That indicates that there's a generator in that room. So any of the rooms that I've mentioned where there could be a generator, if you see a light flickering, that means that that has a generator in it. And we see here, here's the generator. Right inside of the STARS office, slightly reconfigured to fit our purposes for Dead by Daylight. Of course, a fairly strong loop. You can run in here, actually use this entire section as a loop. And you have 2 exits to this area. So again, if you walk in from that hallway, you can come in here. You do have an area here. There's almost always a totem in this room. Anytime I've spawned into this map, there's been a totem. It's probably not guaranteed, but it is dark, so do keep that in mind. The STARS office, west 2nd floor. And of course, if you do manage to drop this pallet, and this pallet is always here, it is guaranteed, you can go ahead and walk into here. This would be the armory, but there's nothing special in this particular area. Again, but you do see the light flickering to indicate that the main office, the STARS office, has a generator. Alright, so keep that in mind. You can enter from both of these areas. Again, the locker room is on the left. There's the God pallet. So these just loop in on themselves. A little bit of an Ouroboros. We're going to keep going down the hallway here, though. If we keep going down the hallway, we have another God pallet. Alright, this God pallet cannot be gotten around necessarily easily. And we do see the linen room. Alright, and then again, this just loops back around into itself, so we're back at that God pallet again. We're gonna go down here real quick. We're gonna see, I call it the unicorn room, but this is technically a lounge as per Resident Evil Remake. But this is where you would solve the unicorn puzzle in Resident Evil 2 Remake. It's important to know that if you drop down here, which you can, this drops you down right into the reception area, the very first area that we explored in the West office. So this is a nice drop down area that you can use to get where you need to go. Okay, there are some lockers here if you need those. We're gonna go into one of the more robust areas on the map. This is the library. Now it is important to note that this section here winds back into the Resident Evil police, or the Raccoon City Police Department, right? Loops back in. You do have a drop down here. And again, this is where you would find the stairs that lead to the basement and the God pallet. And the locker room just past that. So we're gonna go in here real quick. We're gonna check out the library. It's stronger loops. See, there is one pallet right here. That pallet always spawns there. It never changes. Okay? There's nothing on this side of it, so just don't come over here. I do not know if totems can spawn over here. This seems like an obvious location, and it would just take a second to check. But the only safe pallet is here. Alright. Now, you do have this upstairs area that has no output. So if you come up the stairs, you're locked into this room still. There's no doors. But it is important to note that this is an incredible area for looping. Okay? For example, the killer follows you up the stairs. You could come to this window and vault it. Now, if you vault this window, the killer has no choice but to follow you or vault this window. In which case, you guys are far enough apart that you might be able to escape out that door or potentially loop that pallet. Simultaneously, you could go over here where the killer has to chase you. And you could kind of do some back and forth, will they, won't they. Almost in any situation, unless the killer is very close to you, you make it out of here alive. Just don't drop down here. I would almost always recommend hitting the window. If you do hit the window, you drop down here and you can make it back to the pallet in one piece. And again, once you come out here, you have the unicorn room. And then you have the linen area, which is on the wall right there. And then you have a God pallet. Okay? Now, real quick, there is another way to get up and downstairs. This is near the linen room, so keep that in mind. And this will take you directly to the confiscation room. So if you look on the wall and you know you're near the confiscation room, you know you need to be upstairs, go ahead and just right here on the wall. This will take you right up to the linen room. If you're potentially out of pallets and you have nothing else you could do, you can also run upstairs and make it to this pallet here. Or if you're just looking for gens, like I said, keep an eye on the light bulb on the wall. But that is essentially the entirety of the west office. Like I said, the west hallways can have generators in them. If you don't see a generator in the hallway, there's more than likely going to be a generator in a room. And from a distance, like I said, from here, you could see the light bulbs. So just keep an eye. If you see any of those light bulbs flickering, there's a generator for you. Now, we're going to head back to the main RPD room, and we're going to explore the east side of the map. Okay? So, main room. We just got through the west. Let's take a look at the east side. Raccoon City Police Department, sort of main room here. We'll see on the right side, like I said earlier, we have two entrances, a blown out wall there and the normal wall here. And you'll see there's a lot of blood here, and you'll kind of understand why if you've played Resident Evil 2. This hallway is actually, I think, the very first hallway you ever enter. You can see here it says press room and east office. So these are really important to keep in mind. There's a little teaser, there's a map there that you'll kind of be able to see. But this is the east office. This is actually one of the strongest loops in this map. Now, of course, you will see here that it does have this little window, and you can see a totem spawn here. And you can cleanse the totem as of now, so do keep that in mind. It's pretty well hidden. That's a very good totem spawn, so check this room out if you do see it. But we do see a window here in front of us, and this is actually one of the best windows in the game. If you vault this, you go all the way down the hallway, and the killer just has to chase behind you. And then you can fast vault it again and just keep doing that. Now, if the killer runs it backwards, a little bit less optimal, but an incredibly, incredibly powerful loop. There is a guaranteed pallet right here, so do keep that in mind. This will always be here in this exact same location. To my knowledge, this one has not moved. Correct me if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below, but this one is almost always here. This sort of makes this feel a little bit like an actual long wall jungle gym, but it's got a much longer wall. All right, now it is important to know, again, as we talked about earlier, as you round the corner, it's a little bit harder to see because this whiteboard's in the way, but we do see the flickering light that indicates to us that a generator is in this room. This generator's in a fairly safe spot, so you can work on it from this angle. If the killer comes in that door, you hit the pallet. If they come from that direction, well, then you have years to walk away. Pretty safe generator here. And we do have a window down here. This window is not particularly special, but it will let you exit out that way, and we'll go that way here in a little bit. We're going to go back to the very first east hallway we go into, and this one will take you right up here into the RPD main room. So again, this links. These are the same area right here. Nothing special. They link to the same east office, the same window right there. You could vault in, get to the pallet, etc. So do keep an eye on that. And you can see at the very far end of the hallway, it does say stairs. If you do need to get upstairs, that's a little bit less confusing than something like Midwich. Now we're going to go down here. We do see a light, but there's no flickering light, which means no generator in this room. But there has been known to be a generator in this room. Now, if you guys remember this room from any of the Resident Evil 2 or 2 Remake, this is the room where a certain somebody crashes a party as you walk in here to complete a puzzle. So if you walk through, that is a very short loop. In theory, you could do that if you have some time. You could vault this window. This is the interrogation room loop. You could kind of do this. It's not very potent, and odds are it's not going to do you much good. It's best if the killer corrals you into that room and vaults it so that you have to leave the room entirely. But again, this leads you right back to, that's the east office, that's the main room, and we have the interrogation rooms. I'll say rooms, plural. Okay. So if we go here, we have what I call the press room. This looks like the press room, really. Right? Now this room does have a pallet. This pallet is obviously set up to be able to be on either side. Not a particularly safe loop, but not awful. That pallet is always in this room. And if we go here, again, we see the east office window and the main room right in front of us. And the stairs sign right there. So, we are in pretty good hands. That's the press room right there. If we go left down here, towards where it points us to the stairs, this takes us again to the press room. And then this, all the way down there, is the interrogation room. So keep all of that in mind. Now here, we have a set of stairs that'll take us up. We won't quite go to the second story yet on the east side, but it is worth noting. And we do have the restroom down here. Now, this restroom is flooded. It is worth noting a totem can spawn right here near the flooded toilet. It is incredibly dark in here, so it is very hard to see, so always check this location. And we have ourselves another save room. Again, just like before, the save room's music actually indicates that it's a save room. You can hear it change. We walk through the save room, we come out back here, and we'll come back to this area later. To my knowledge, this pallet always spawns in the save room, but again, it is a pretty strong pallet. So if you do run through here, slight god pallet, takes a little bit of time to get across it. If we come back here, an extension of the save room. We'll walk down here. And this area, this hallway here, will lead us right all the way back to the east office. Now let me backtrack that so that we kind of have a better understanding of where that led us, okay? So right now, stairs. So the stairs lead us to the bathroom. You can see the water on the floor. That indicates the bathroom is there. If you choose to go around, maybe through that god window, come through here. There's nothing in this room. But you can hit this hallway. And if you look down this hallway, you have the save room. Now, in some very specific circumstances, there can be a pallet in this hallway. But that isn't guaranteed. Okay. Now, this is where the basement is. On this particular side. Remember earlier, it's at the bottom of the staircase. On the west side. You go down the staircase all the way. Here, it's near the exit, and you'll see the basement actually for the first time has a very different configuration. The lockers are no longer right here. They're actually right behind the wall right here. Simultaneously, the chest is no longer in this corner. It's in that corner. Slight changes, slightly different. It is worth noting that as of the PTB, there is not much audio ducking, so the minute you leave, the audio stops. It just cuts off, so interesting little tidbit there. But we do have an outside area, and we'll kind of talk about this area. This area can have an exit gate, so do keep that in mind. Any of the outdoor areas can have an exit gate, and this will lead you back in here, where we have the press room, we have the bathroom, we have the stairs. So if we go outside, you'll see that there are stairs, but remember there's a doorway underneath of it. Let's go upstairs here, and we'll take a look. We do have a generator. This generator is almost always here. There's almost always a rooftop generator. There's our friendly Wraith again. Now, when we have the rooftop generator, if it's not in this location, it also could be over here. So keep that in mind. Now here, we do have a pallet. This pallet always spawns here. And it's not an awful loop, but you might not make more than 1 or 2 rotations. However, if you can manage to loop around this, drop the pallet, you can also make a vault, and that vault will set you downstairs. Remember that the yellow tape is a vault. It's a very strong one, too. If you guys didn't know, of course, we have our helicopter crash from Resident Evil 2 Remake, if you guys saw that. We'll explore that here in just a minute. Again, we have the stairs, and these would lead us downstairs, right to being in front of the press room, so do keep that in mind. So if we go this way, left, we'll see that we have this hallway here. This all seems very confusing at this point. This is the art room. Again, where you put the book in, you get the scepter out from Resident Evil 2 Remake. This is a fairly strong loop. You do have a pallet. This pallet is guaranteed to spawn in here, and if you're particularly tricksy, you can actually run this loop from the wall side and do this instead of running inside of the room itself, which you can do, but is less safe and fewer loops. To keep this art room in mind here on the second story on the east side. And of course, it is labeled art room down there. And if we loop back inwards, we'll see the exit. We're not going to go quite out that exit yet. We do have the helicopter crash again. And then we have this doorway. And this doorway is virtually useless, so you might be able to hide out here, but... So we'll go inside. And we do have one exit here. If we're using this exit, you can use the stairs, but if you are being chased by the killer, you can vault this down, drop all the way down, and you're at the east office on the first floor. And then you could start using this incredibly strong loop here as well. Not a bad spot to be in. There can be a generator right here at times. Just have to come outside to take a look. We're going back upstairs. The helicopter crash is visible right here. Give you an indicator of where you are. It is down that hallway. On our right hand side here through the wall is the art room. Just to give you a sense of where we are. And on the left we have the waiting room. Now this waiting room can have a totem behind the desk here. This is where a safe usually is, and you can see the safe there. A little bit of homage to Resident Evil 2 Remake again. And this will bring you back to the RCPD main room. Again, you do have a vault here, so if you are trying to get away from the killer, you could buy yourself small amounts of time. Hopefully get balanced landing and boost away. If we continue going down this, all the way over this direction, we'll actually see something that is very different than Resident Evil 2 Remake. And this is where the police chief's room is. And of course, this is like a hidden door. So we'll see the police chief's... If you go down here, we'll see the police chief's room. Now, the police chief's room always has a pallet. The pallet will either spawn here, or it will spawn here. And of course, this is a save room in Resident Evil 2 Remake, so we hear the music change. And of course, we see all the taxidermy. Again, homage to Resident Evil 2 Remake. And if we come out here, here's the exit to the rooftop, where that generator is, where that loop is, and where the helicopter is. Keep in mind that there can be a totem right here, and this one spawns pretty consistently, so keep an eye out for that. When it's lit up, it'll be a little bit more easy to see. But from the rooftop, of course, we have the stairs. Let's go back into the police chief's room. And again, that will lead you right into the RCPD main room. But if we go left here, I call this the tiger hallway, for obvious reasons. And this tiger hallway leads back here. After a few steps, you can actually hop into the art room. Just to try to make sense of this entire area. Now, if we do hop in here, and we just keep walking down, it's a pretty thin hallway here. And we end up in this room. Now, this room has a pretty unsafe palette. But if need be, you can try to play around it. Again, it's hard to see a killer here, but it's a short enough loop you might be able to see a red stain on the wall if they're trying to moonwalk, but not very safe. Very rough palette. And then you see this little room. I believe a totem can spawn in here. To my knowledge, a generator cannot spawn in this room. I believe it is too small. And then right here, we pop out, again, right in front of the art room. Again, as said before, keep an eye out on the light bulbs to see if there's a generator in a particular room. If there is a flickering light bulb, there will be a generator. So just keep that in mind. You'll see that a lot as you play, and that's a really good indicator of where you need to go. As we enter through the police chief's room, and we go back to the main room, it's important to know that there can be a totem right here. Fairly obvious totem. And for the most part, that's the entirety of the map. That is Raccoon City Police Department in its entirety. I hope it wasn't too terribly confusing for you. I tried to connect everything and interlock things in a way that made some semblance of sense. But hopefully, as you play the game, you start to really appreciate the map. It really seems like this map doesn't have too many palettes that are particularly strong. And the reason for that is to make it so that the killers that have to chase you through long hallways can not... It really seems like with this map, it's a very large map with a lot of doorways and a lot of walls, which makes it very hard for a killer to be able to catch you and find you. They kind of have to walk the hallways to see where you are as a survivor and listen very closely to hear if you're above them or below them. This might be the reason why there aren't that many strong pallets in the map. Most of the pallets are fairly negligible and can be walked around by the killer. But again, I think most of the pallets being unsafe makes up for the fact that killers are going to have to walk in very straight lines while you hold W as a survivor for a long time. We'll see how this pans out. Because of its sheer size, it may lean to be a survivor-sided map, but for the most part, you won't be having to break tons and tons of pallets to down survivors. You can walk around most of them in a lot of instances. But what do you guys think of the map? It stays pretty faithful to Resident Evil 2. And, I don't know, I'm very appreciative. As somebody who's beaten Resident Evil 2 Remake quite a few times and played RE2 on the N64, this map is a good ode, a good salute. And I'm pretty proud to be able to play the game and enjoy this map. Even if it's not my favorite map in the game, I'm glad that it's in. I think it's a good nod, and I appreciate it a lot. But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. What could we have done better for the map review? Let me know in the comments below, of course. I'll be praying to the entity to see you guys in the next video.